Welcome to the video solution of the CAT 23 slot 3 DILR over here. Again, if you will find that not all these 4 sets are going to be easy, at the same time not 4 of them are going to be difficult. But yes, solving all the 4 in the exam conditions is going to be really difficult. A person who is going to be strong in DILR can possibly crack sometime 1 set to 2 sets. And I would say all the 4 sets are going to be sort of a moderate. Not all of them are difficult, but yes, it is going to be a time-consuming set. In a coaching class, some students register online and some other register offline. No student register both online and offline. Hence, the total registration number is sum of the online and the offline registration. The following fact and the table pertain to this registration number for the 5-month January to May of 2023. The table shows the minimum, maximum and the median registration number of this 5 months separately for online, offline and the total number of registration. And then they have given you the following fact. Now, if you look at over here, the main thing is that whether people understand the concept of median. So basically, suppose if I talk about the first scenario, for online registration, let's say among this 5 months from Jan to May, the lowest basically was 40, the highest basically was 100 and the median basically was 80. What does a median mean? It means the third smallest value has to be 80, or one can say third largest value has to be 80 when you arrange the data basically in the ascending order. So to make things explained to you over here, suppose if I say for the 5-month, I don't know the name January, February and so on. The smallest of them for the online one need to be a 40. The largest need to be 100 and the third largest need to be a 80 when the data are going to be sorted over here. Now understand the value of this, one can say can be more than equals to 40 or less than equals to 80. So this place could be a 40, 50, 60, 70 or a 80 here. And this particular place can also, one can say, will be more than equals to 80 or less than equals to 100. And with the further condition which are given to us, as the registration has to be always a multiple of 10, it could be a 80, 90 or a 100 over here as a possibility. So once you understand for, let's say, one of the online scenario, then the things are going to be very straightforward. Then these are the question, and believe me, the first 2 questions are straightforward. So even if someone cannot crack the entire set, the first 2 questions can be easily answered, where we are talking about finding the total number of registration in the month of April and total number of online registration in the month of January, because we have been given some point regarding January and April. So let's go ahead and let's try to solve this particular scenario. So what I will do is I will write down for the online offline total what is the number of registration for January, February, March, April and May. These are my 5 months and I'm going to create a table like this. As I told, for the online, the smallest is going to be 40, the largest will be 100 and the median is going to be 80. For offline, one can say smallest is going to be a 30, the median has to be a 50 and the largest basically has to be a 80. And finally, for the total, the lowest number is 110, the highest number is 130 and the median given to you is a 120 over here. So now if you look at over here, the possible values for this could only be a 110 or a 120 for the total. Again, this fourth largest value, one can say, could be a 120 or a 130. So total number of possible combination in this particular case become, one can say, 4 over here. So 110, 110, 120, 120, 130, 110, 110, 120, 130, 130. And likewise, we can have 110, 120, 120, 120, 130 or 110, 120, 120, 130 and 130. We'll see which case is going to be the possibility. So if I look at, suppose, point number 1, where they are saying that in every month, both online and the online registration number were multiple of 10. So you can't have a number like 41 over here for any particular month. It has to be a multiple of 10. So point number 1 is clear. Let's look at point number 2. Very simple. In January, the number of offline registration was twice the online one. So if I take the online registration January to be X, then the offline basically has to be a 2X. So total registration, which has to be nothing but sum of the online plus offline, as no one has taken both these online and offline, this total become equals to a 3X. And for the total, the only value which are possible are 110 or a 120 or a 130, and this total need to be a multiple of 3 because the number 3x is going to be a multiple of 3. So the only number which is a multiple of 3 here happens to be nothing but a 120. So if 3x is 120, x become equals to a 40, and that means we are able to find out this as 40, 80 and 120. And at this moment itself, we are able to answer one of the question where they ask you in the month of January the number of online registration, and that answer basically happens to be a 40. Going for point number 3, it says that in the month of April, the number of online registration was twice that of the offline one. So if I assume in the month of April, if I say offline was Y, then online becomes 2Y. So total registration in the month of April will become nothing but 3Y again. And that is again a multiple of 3, and the only possibility would be nothing but the number 120. So Y becomes 40. So this becomes a 80, 40 and 120. And one of the question was total number of registration in the month of April, and that answer become equals to a 120. So we are, let's say, able to answer 2 questions only by, let's say, completing point number 2 and point number 3. Let's go further. If I look at point number 4, it says the number of online registration in the month of March was same as the number of offline registration in the month of February. So these two basically are same. Let me call it Z and Z right now. And the last point, which is saying that the number of online registration was largest in the month of May. So if I look at the online, highest was 100, and that happens in the month of May. So this May online become 100. Now the lowest for offline we know is 30, and the max I can basically have in the total is also a 130. So please note over here we cannot have 100 plus 40 or 100 plus 50 because that is going to cross the mark 130. So this has to be 30 here, and this will be a 130. So at this moment we know the situation for January, April and May for sure, and we have to do some number crunching for the other 2 months. So let's look at what has been done so far. For the online, a 40 has been used. We also have used 80, and we also have used a 100. Now if I look at the offline one, we have used a 30. Then we also see a 40 for the month of April, and that 40 can only come over here. So 40 have been used. Then 80 have been used. So what can I say about the offline one? These 2 places one can say could only be 50-50, 50-60, 50-70 or a 50-80 over here. This is what the possibility would be. And if I look at for the overall, we have got a 130 right now. We have got a 120, and please note we also have got another 120. And we also need to have a 110. Now what is the possibility in case of offline? One of the month among Feb or March has to be definitely a 50, and we have to take the situation. For example, if I take this particular number as 50, then this also will become 50. So right now you have a 40 for online. We have taken this as 50. So this particular number one can say has to be minimum 80 or a 90 or a 100. So now if you put a 80 over here as minimum, this total become equals to a 130. Please note, can I put a 90 over here? And the answer is no, because 90 plus 50 will give you 140, but the largest total registration in any month was nothing but a 130. So with this thing into consideration, this 90 is not possible, and then we cannot also place a 100 over there. So it has to be a 80 here plus 50 giving you 130. So we have got 2 120, we have got 2 130, so it has to be a 110, and this thing has to be a 60. And this is very much possible. So everything is getting satisfied, and one can say this is going to be a unique possibility. But let's also try to see whether we have another possibility also or not. Now let's look at the possibility that the 50 belongs to offline registration in the month of March and not February. If I call this to be equals to a 50, so again we have used a 30, 40, 50 and 80. And this particular number again one can say can only be 50, 60, 70 or a 80. Now again between the month of Feb and March, one of them basically is going to come out to be nothing but the number 110. Suppose if I take this scenario, this being equals to a 110, in that case Z has to be 60. So Z60 means we have put this particular part as 60. So this also becomes 60. Now the minimum for the month of online Feb is going to be minimum 80. And again, this 80 plus 60 is going to cross the mark, one can say a 140. So, and 140 is not possible as 130 was the largest. So, we cannot have a 50 and correspondingly equals to a 110. What about if I have a 50 here and a 110 over here? In that particular case, can this be equals to 110? One can say a possible yes. For this to happen, this has to be 60. This will also become 60 because online March and offline Feb are equal. For this to happen, this become a 50. But understand this particular number, because I want the median to be equals to a 80, 40, 50, 60, 80, 100 will have a median of 60 and not 80. And that is the problem in this particular scenario. So what about if I have a 50 here and if I take this particular part to be equals to a 70, in that case, this becomes a 120, quite possible. For this to happen, this number need to be a 110 because one of the month has to be a 110. Then this becomes a 70 and this becomes a 40. And again, if you look at this particular situation, then in case of offline, one can see 30, 40, 50, 70 and 80 will have a median of 50. For online one, we can see a number like 40, 40, 70, 80 and 100. And the median becomes a 70, it should be 80. So this case can also be ruled out. And likewise, there won't be any further scenarios over here. And we have got the unique possibility where this Z was 50 and a 50. Now, if I want this to become a 110, and since we have used a 40, 50, 80, and this will become 60, and this will change the median to a 60. So this should not be a 110, this should be a 110. This would become a 60 and this was coming out to be 130 and Feb online become equals to a 80. So once I get this unique possibility, we can easily answer all our questions. Let's look at the first question, total number of registration in the month of April. As I told you, this was very, very straightforward. Total comes out to be 180 and hence 120 is the answer for this particular question. In the next one, again a straightforward one, the number of online registration in the month of January. January online happens to be 40 and hence 40 is the answer for this question. In the next one, they are saying that which of the following statement can be true. So if you look at this one, the number of offline registration was smallest in the month of May. So offline, smallest in the month of May, this is a true statement. So right now one can say if one is true, the answer can be only one or both 1 and 2. It cannot be option number 2 or option number 4. Second statement says total number of registration was the smallest in the month of February. As you can see, the smallest happens to be in the month of March. So this is not true over here. And hence one can say in this particular case, the required answer has to be only 1 and one can choose to mark option number 1 over here. Then if I look at the next question, it says that what best can be said about the number of offline registration in the month of February. So Feb offline happens to be a unique number which is a 50 and that means my required answer for this particular question would be option number 2. And finally, if I look at the last one, it says that which pair of month definitely had the same total number of registration. So the two statements given to you are Jan and April. Jan and April are 120. So this is definitely true. They are equal. Jan and April are equal. And then if I look at Feb and May, 130 and 130, these two also are same. That means both 1 and 2 and hence option number 2 is the required answer for this particular question. So if you look at this particular set also was not very, very difficult. Solving the first two questions was on the easier side, but yes, finding out the values for the month of Feb and March will require for you to understand the concept of median properly. And overall, I will rate this particular set to be slightly on the moderate side, if not the easier side. If you have read this particular set, this set broadly talks about there are 3 female students and 3 male students in a course. The course has 2 evaluation components. One is the project work, one is the test. Then they are saying that the project are done in a group of 2. So one can say there are going to be 3 groups. Each group has to contain 1 female and 1 male student. And then they also told something about the minimum and the maximum and the average of both the project and the test score were identical. and those numbers were 40, 80 and 60 respectively. What does that mean? The minimum is going to be 40, max is going to be 80, and the average basically happens to be a 60. So if you look at over here, people need to have some good mathematical reasoning to crack this particular question. They should understand the term averages, which I believe many of you should, because you have done the same thing in the quant as well. Now, whether I should attempt this particular set in the exam conditions or not will be decided by looking at the questions. So if I look at the 5 questions over here, the first one talks about what was Rini's score in the project, what was the weight of the test component, what was the max aggregate score obtained by the student, what was Matthew's score in the test, which are the following pair of student pair part of the same project team. So it is very, very clear that in this particular scenario, there is no word called can be, if scenario. That means most likely with the given condition, I will be able to come out to as a unique scenario. And that is going to prompt me to possibly try to attempt my, let's say, luck in the exam condition. Let's look at what could be the approach to solve this particular set. So again, we know 3 female students, Amla, Kohli and Rini, 3 male, Biman, Matthew and Shamal. And then they are saying there are 2 components, one is the project, one is the test. And they are saying the aggregate score of the course is the weighted average of the 2 components with the weight being positive and added to the number 1 over here. So I can, let's say, give a weight of 0.2 to the project. In that particular case, I have to give a 0.8 to the test score. Or the weight could be 0.3, 0.7, it could be 0.35, 0.65. The sum has to be equals to a 1 over here. Then they are saying over here, these points are very, very crucial, that the project are done in group of 2 with each group consisting of a female and a male student. So obviously the 2 girls cannot be a part of the same group. It has to be a different group. So each group are going to comprise of 1 male and 1 female. And this, I believe, is also a very, very critical point. Both the group member obtained the same score in the project. So suppose if I say a particular person, let's say A, is a part of group 1 and secured, let's say, a 40, in that particular case, his or her teammate is also going to score a 40 in the project work. So I believe to crack this particular question, people should be able to understand 1 and 2. And 1 and 2 is where I would say people need to develop their, they have to, let's say, spark out their reasoning skills to solve this particular set. So what does the point number 1 says? The minimum, maximum and the average of both the project and the test score are identical. And those numbers are 40, 80 and 60 respectively. So what I will do is I will look at what are the possible score in the project and the test. Let's also read point number 2. So the test score of the student were all multiples of 10. 4 of them were distinct and the remaining 2 were equal to the average test score. I will write here, suppose project. I will write here test scores. Now for the project, they are saying minimum is 40. Max is 80. And understand, if someone has got a score of 40, then his or her teammate is also going to score a 40 as well, because they have told over here both the group member obtain the same score in the project. So if one has got a 40, one other person is also going to get a 40. Again, if someone have got a 80 in project, his or her teammate is also going to score a 80. So we are going to have 240, we are going to have 2 80s. And since the average happens to be one can say a 60, that means the total over here must be equals to a 360. Right now you can see a 120 plus 160 plus 80 will give you a 240, which means another 120 has to come, and these 2 scores are also going to be equal, which one can say has to be only 60 and 60 over here. If you also look at the scenario that so far for the average of 40 and 80, we also have got a 60. And which would mean if I want the overall average to be also equal to 60, the other 2 scores are going to be 60 each. This could also be a line of thought which can be built on over here. Then if I talk about this point number 2, it says that the test score of the student were all multiples of 10. In the test also one can say that the score of 40 was minimum and the score of 80 basically was highest. And this is very, very critical. They are saying 4 of them were distinct and the remaining 2. So apart from this 4 which were distinct, the remaining 2 were equal to the average test score. And the average test score for all the 6 people happens to be given to you also as 60. from point number 1. That means we are going to again have 260s also at this particular point. Now the average of this test score is also given to you as 60, which means again this total also need to be equals to a 360. And please note that this 4 places should also going to be nothing but 4 distinct numbers. And right now, if you look at the sum, it again comes out to be 240. You need another 120. So can I put a 40 here and a 80 here so that sum become 120? And the answer is no, because apart from this 2 score, I can only see 2 distinct score, 40 and 80. Can I have 60 also over here? And the answer is no. In that particular case, one can see only 3 distinct score apart from this. Not possible. That means the only possible way to achieve this would be a 50 and a 70 over here. And you can see apart from this 2 score which were equal, other 4 were 40, 50, 70 and 80, and they happen to be distinct. So I would say the point number 1 and point number 2 are the anchor point, and the only people who will understand this are the possible score of project, and for the test they would be easily able to solve this particular set. Let's go ahead. What I will do is I will make a simple table over here with the name of the 6 students over here, and then we can have 3 columns, one for the project, one for the test, and one for the aggregate, which is nothing but the weighted average score of the project component and the test component. So this is how my table is going to look like. Now if I read point number 3, let's focus on point 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's start with the point number 3. Amala's score in the project was double that of Kohli in the same. Even though they have not told what are the score of Amala and Kohli, what I know is that the Amala score in project is double of Kohli. If I look at the project work, the smallest number is 40, the largest number is 80, and the only way I can see a double is nothing but the numbers 40 and 80. So with this, I can very much be sure to say that Amala must have scored a 80 and Kohli must have scored a 40 in project. Now we know that the 2 girls have scored a 80 and a 40, and they are part of different group. The third person, Rini, is also going to be a part of different group. So they are part of, so the 3 girls, Amla, Kohli and Rini, are part of 3 different groups, and the groups have scored a 40, 60 and a 80. So if 2 of the group have scored a 80 and a 40, the third group must have scored a 60. So right now I can also put the score of Rini in the project, which is coming out to be a 60. So we have used this particular point. Now they are saying, but Kohli scored 20 more than Amla in the test. So in this particular case, suppose if I say Amla has got a score of X, in that particular case, Kohli must have got a X plus 20. Now understand, despite this, Amla had the highest aggregate score. So please note that Amla is getting the highest, is the important point. Now, if you look at the possible test score of Amla and Kohli, one can say at this particular point, this can only be right now, one can say 40, 60, 50, 70 or a 60, 80. So please be careful about this are the only 3 possibility. I will not go into the possibility straight away. Let's go ahead and read point number 4, 5, 6, which can give you some more direct information. So we already have, let's say, got a score of 40, 60 and 80 have been used in the project. We have to another allocate a 40, 60, 80 among Biman, Matthew and Shamal. Point number 4 now says Shamal scored the second highest in the test. In the test, the highest score was 80 and the second highest basically happens to be 70, and this 70 belongs to, one can say, Shamal. So if Shamal has got a 70 and we only have 170 in the test score, that means for Amla and Kohli in the test, this cannot be a 50-70. So right now one can say if it can't be 50-70 over here, it can be a 40-60, or I would say this can be a 60-80 at the moment. These are my 2 possibilities. Either this or this. Let's see, because we are going to use that condition of highest as well. Let's go ahead. And they are saying Shamal has scored 2 more than Kohli, but 2 less than Amla in the aggregate. So if I assume, suppose Shamal aggregate to be equals to some number A and score 2 more than Kohli, then Kohli must be at A minus 2 aggregate, and 2 less than Amla, that means this is going to be nothing but A plus 2 over here. Fair enough. Let's go ahead over here. Then if I look at the point number 5, Biman scored the second lowest in the test. In the test, the lowest score was 40 and that was unique. The second lowest score happens to be a 50. That means this 50 belong to, one can say, Biman over here. That is being done. And lowest in the aggregate, Biman have got the lowest. Now we don't know right now what is that. Then if I look at the last point, so we have used point number 3, 4, 5. Last point is there, point number 6. It says Matthew scored more than Rini in the project. Now we know that the Rini score in project happens to be a 60, and the only number more than 60 which is possible is nothing but 80. So one can say Matthew must have got a 80 in the project. So right now at this particular point, we can say that Biman and Shamlal is going to get, one can say, 40 and 60 in some order, which we don't know. But we also know something about Matthew, that Matthew has got less than her in the test. So whatever score is over here, it is going to be less than Rini over here. Now, the thing is, if I look at the person Amla and Matthew, they have got the same score in the project, which means that one of the team is definitely going to be Amla and Matthew. Now, can Amla get a 40 in the test? The answer basically would be a no, because only 140 is there. In that particular case, the score of Matthew in test is definitely going to be more than 40. And what does that mean? In that particular case, the weighted score, aggregate score of Amla is going to be less than that of Matthew, and Amla will not going to be the highest. With that particular reasoning, I can say this 40 cannot belong to Amla. So this 40 would be out then with that reasoning, and it has to be a 60 and a 80. And if that is known, things are going to become slightly simpler. Because moment I got this, what I can do is I can take the help of aggregate of Amla and Kohli, and we can figure out what is going to be the respective weight given to the project and the test component. So if I suppose say we have given a weight of x to project, this would mean I have given a weight of 1 minus x to the test. So 80 into x plus 60 into 1 minus x, and this will give you aggregate of a plus 2. For Kohli, it will be 40 into x plus 80 into 1 minus x should be equals to a minus 2. Now what I can do is I can simply subtract, because my RHS is now going to be nothing but equals to a 4. 80x minus 40x give you a 40x. I can take 1 minus x common, and then I get 60 minus 80, which is a negative 20. So this becomes minus 20. Let's open this. 40x minus 20 plus 20x is equals to a 4. So one will get 60x is equals to a 24. X become equals to a 24 upon 60, or one can say 0.4. And that basically means that the weight given to the project work is 0.4, which would mean the weight given to the test score happens to be a 0.6. So we have, at this particular moment, we have got the weightage given to the project and the test also. And with this, we can easily find out what is the aggregate. So for the aggregate marks of Amla, one can say 80 into 0.4 is 32. 60 into 0.6 happens to be a 36. 36 plus 32 will give you a 68. So A plus 2, this mark becomes 68. If this is 68, then A minus 2 definitely has to be 64. There's no need to check, but one can verify again. 40 into 0.4 is 16. 80 into 0.6 is 48. So 16 plus 48 is equals to a 64. If A plus 2 is 68, then this has to be equal to a 66. So now, if you look at the weighted score in the test must be equals to a 42. 70 into 0.6 will give you a 42. So please note here, I am not using the angle of lowest score by Biman, I am using the common sense. So weighted score here is 42. That means this has to be equals to a 24. 66 minus 42 will give me a 24. So 24 is the weighted score of project by Shamal. In that particular case, this 24 must be 40% of something. This would mean Shamal must have got a 60, because 60 into 0.4 will give me a 24, and not 40 into 0.4 will give me a 24. So Biman must have got a 40 over here. So with that particular reasoning, what we have is we got this particular score right now. And if you look at the test score, we already have got a 50. We already have got a 60. 70 is also there. And the number left are 1 is 40 and 1 is 60. And what we know at this particular point is that Matthew has scored less than her in the test. So Matthew must have got a 40 here and Rini must have got a 60 here. So right now we know the scores, let's say, by all the 6 students in the project and the test We also know the weights as well. So we can easily find out the aggregate score of Rini, Biman and Matthew as well. So for Rini, since the score are same, it doesn't matter what is the weight. So it has to be 60 definitely. For Biman, 40 into 0.4 is 16. 50 into 0.6 is 30. So 16 plus 30 become equals to a 46. That's the lowest right now. For Matthew, 80 into 0.4 is 32. 40 into 0.6 is 24. So one can say over here 32 plus 24 will give me nothing but 56. And for the Shamal, we already have got the number to be 66. So please note, we all know the scores for project, test and aggregate, and we can also find out the group. So people with the same score in the project are going to be a part of the same group. So one group, one can say, could be A and M, Amla and Matthew, because they have got 80 in the project. Kohli, if you look at Kohli and Biman are going to be the team because they have got 40 each in the project, and Rini and Shamal. And with this, we can easily answer all our questions. So let's go ahead. So if you look at the first question, it says, what was the Rini score in the project? So Rini has scored how much in the project? And the answer basically is 60. And that is what one will enter in that particular theta question. In the next one, they say, what was the weight of the test component? We have seen the weight of test component happens to be 0.6 or 60%. And hence one can mark option number 3 over here. In the next one, if you look at what was the maximum aggregate score obtained by the student. So if you look at the max score obtained is by Amla, and that number comes out to be 68. So one can mark option number 2 over here. Then if I look at the next question, it says, what was Matthew's score in the test? Matthew in the test has scored a 40. So the answer for this particular theta question would be a 40. And then it is given, which of the following pair of students were part of the same project team? So we know that the team basically happens to be A and B. So if you look at A and B is wrong. Kohli and Matthew again is wrong. What does that mean? Amla and Biman are not part of the same group. Similarly, Kohli and Matthew also are not part of the same group. But we need to find out the pair who are in the same project team or in the same group. So one can say neither one nor two, and hence one can mark option number 1 over here. The next set is the interesting one, and I was luckily able to solve this under the exam condition also, getting all correct. We will see the best possible approach for this, or obviously explaining you what need to be exactly done. The set goes like this. A, B, C, D, E, F are the 6 police stations in an area which are connected by street as shown below. 4 teams, namely Team 1, Team 2, Team 3, Team 4, patrol this street continuously between 9 and 12 hours each day. And they have given you a diagram as well. Now, then they are also telling you the team need 30 minutes to cross a street connecting one police station to the another. All 4 teams start from station A at 9 o'clock. So at 9 o'clock, all the team 1, 2, 3, 4 are going to be at the station A and must return to station number A by 12 hours. They can also pass via station A at any point on their journey. So let's try to understand what they are trying to convey in this particular sentence. It takes 30 minutes. So for example, if I say all of them are at 9 o'clock at the point A, so it will take half an hour, let's say, for a particular team or any team to go from station A to B, A to C, A to F, and let's say A to E. Again, if someone want to go from C to D, time taken basically would be half an hour. D to E is also going to take nothing but half an hour, and so on like this. So now they have also given you the condition which are given to us, and we can also look at the question, who among the following station is visited by the largest number of time? How many times do the team pass through station B in a day? Which team patrol the street connecting station D and E at 10-15 hours, and so on like this. These are the questions given. Now let's look at the approach to solve this particular question. The most important, let's say, thing which you need to be careful about in this particular set is whether you have understood the point number 1 very, very carefully. And I would say point number 1 is the anchor point to crack this particular set. So let's try to understand point number 1 very, very carefully. None of the street has more than one team traveling along it in any direction at any point in time. What does that mean? Suppose if I talk about between 9 to let's say 9:30, if I say team number 1 is going from let's say A to F, in that particular case, I cannot have any other team, let's say T2, T3 or T4 also taking the same route. Moreover, let's say at any point of time, if I'm saying that someone is going from, let's say, A to C, one team is going from A to C, then this A to C part cannot be taken up by any other team in any direction. So we cannot have a team also going from A to C at the same time. And also we cannot have a team, let's say, going from C to A also at the same time. That is going to be an important part. So if you understand this point, things are going to be very, very clear. Now also try to understand that if someone is reaching a station B in the previous half an hour, it must be coming from A. So A to B can be traversed in half an hour. If someone reaches B, the only place they can go to is nothing but A. So because B is a dead end, sort of one can say A to B and then B to A only is a possibility. That's a very, very important part. And since we have 4 teams, so kindly understand that at 9 o'clock, every team is at station A. So T1, T2, T3 and T4. And from A, one can only go to 4 stations in half an hour. So at 9:30, one of the team will be at B, one will be at C, one will be at E, and one basically will be at F over here. So what I will do, I can make a, let's say, table with team 1, team 2, team 3, team 4 in the rows. And in my column could be the positions of the station at 9, 9:30, 10 o'clock, 10:30 and so on like this. Also understand, people can also wish to write down from 9 to 9:30 where are they going, A to B, then 9:30 to 10, 10 to 10:30, depends on them. I am just going to create the position at a particular time because my point number 2, 3, 4 talks about where they were and so on. So this is what my table look like, and from this particular point that at 9 o'clock every team was at station number A, so I'm going to put a sure shot A over here. At 12 o'clock they must return to station A, so team 1, 2, 3, 4 must be at station A at 12 o'clock. Now understand, as I told you that between 9 to 9:30 each of the team has to travel to a different station. So over here at 9:30 one can say it has to be all distinct. One can say it will be B, C, E or F. Similarly, from 11:30 to 12 o'clock all the 4 teams are reaching station A and they have to come from different station, because again from that point number 1, none of the street has more than one team traveling along it in any direction at any point in time. So the 4 team reaching the station A, one will come from F, one will come from B, one will come from E, A, and one will come from C over here. So again, over here also, all these stations are going to be nothing but a distinct one. So let's read the subsequent point and let's try to figure out what is known to us. So I will read this all the point 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So point number 2 first of all says team 2 and team 3. So team 2 and team 3 are the only one in station E and D respectively at 10 o'clock. At 10 o'clock, the team 2 was at E, team 3 basically was at D. And what they are saying is that team 2 and team 3 are the only ones. What does that mean? Team 1 and team 4 cannot be at station E and D. So I'm just putting this. Then if I look at this point has been taken care of. Let's look at point number 3 now. Team number 1 and team number 3 are the only one in station E at 10:30. So at 10:30 you have team 1 and team 3 at station E. This is E. And these are the only one, which means that at 10:30 neither team 2 nor team 4 can be at station number E. So we have used point number 3 as well. Let's go ahead. If I look at point number 4, it says team 1 and team 4 are the only one in station B and E at 11:30. At 11:30, team number 1 was at B and team number 4 basically was at E over here at 11:30. And these are the only one, which means team number 2 and team number 3 cannot be B, cannot be E. I can write, please note that this one can say at 11:30 they need to be at 4 distinct stations, because at 12 o'clock all of them are going to go to station number A. So again, I can write, this is not required for this because it has to be all distinct, already being told. So we have used this point number 2, 3, 4. Let's go to point number 5, which says that team number 1 and team number 4 are the only team that patrol the street connecting station A and E. So this route, whether you go from A to E or a E to A, can only be taken up by team 1 or a team 4. No other team, like team number 2 cannot go from E to A or cannot go from A to E. Same thing is true for team number 3 as well. They cannot take this particular path. Then if I look at point number 6, which is very important, team number 4 never passes through B, D or F. So for team number 4, if they never reached B, D or F, that means if I look at the station where they can be, it can only be a C or a E. So it has to be a C or a E over here. It cannot be a B, D or a F. So now what I will do at this particular point is, since I told you B is a critical point, so any, let's say, a team reaching station number B has to come from A, and after reaching station B, the only place they can go can also be equals to A. So if I look at any place a team was at B and the answer is yes, team number B at 11:30 was at B, it means team number 1 must have reached B by going from A to B. So it must, team number 1 must be at A at 11 o'clock. Also, if I look at team number 4 has only limited choices, that is also going to be very, very critical. So understand, team number 4 at 11:30 was at E. And in half an hour, because if you look at the only possibility here could be, one can say A or a C. To go from C to E, the time taken by any team is going to be nothing but 1 hour, because one step to go from one station to the other, which are the roads, it takes only 30 minutes. So from C to E, if I have to go from C to D and D to E, which will take 1 hour, or C to A or A to E, that is also going to take 1 hour. So if I say that at team number 4 at 11:30 was at E, the only possibility would be that at 11 o'clock team number 4 should be at A. That is going to be very, very important. Now, as I told you, team number 4 at 11 o'clock was at A. That means half an hour before it will be at either E or a C. But since we know that it is not E, it has to be a C. So team number 4 must be at station number C at 10:30. This is also known to us. So this much we are able to easily figure out. Now, if you look at team number 4, if I want to go from, let's say, A to C, and the number of steps basically taken is 3, what is the only possibility? It could be A, C, A, C. So A, C, A, C. Can I, let's say, have a E? Again, if you look at this particular place, cannot be a E or a D. So this can only be a A. If it is a A over here, in that particular case, one can say it could be ACA or it could be a AEA, which is not known to me at this particular point of time. So we have to do some number crunching now. Let's focus on other two teams. Let's say if I look at team number 2 at this particular moment, or maybe team number 3. If you look at team number 3, from 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock, going from A to D. And the way to reach from A to D could be someone can go from A to C and then C to D. That is allowed. Or one can go from A to E or A to D. This is the only possibility where a person can go from A to D in a 1 hour time frame by traversing 2 streets. But understand, team number 2 and team number 3 cannot take the route AE, which means this particular case can be ruled out, and that is why this has to be nothing but a C. This is going to be true. And as I told you, at 9:30, all the team have to be at different station. So this particular place, as I told you, team number 4 can only be at station A, C or E. It cannot be A. It cannot be C. So it has to be a E over here. So for team number 4, we know at 9, 9:30, 10 and so on up to 12, we know where they were and what particular route they were following. Now, if I look at, suppose, focusing on team number 2, if I look at team number 2 right now, one can say very much that it is going from A to E. So A to E in just 1 hour. So one of the way could be A to B, B to A, A to E, that will take 1.5 hours. A to C, C to D, D to E will again going to take 1.5 hours. So the only possibility team 2 can reach E from A in 1 hour will be nothing but A, F and E. So in this particular case, it has to be A, then F and then a E. And as you can see over here that at 9:30, each of the team has to be at different station, and we already have used a F, C and E. That means team number 1 at 9:30 must have reached station number B. And if they have reached station number B at 9:30, the only place they can reach at 10 o'clock can only be, one can say, a A. So you can see team number 1, we know the path completely. Team number 4 also we know the path completely. If I focus on the other two teams, team number 3 and team number 2, team number 3, if you look at this particular point, happens to be at E. So what we have to focus on, team 3 was at 10:30 at E, and it has to reach over here at A. What is the possibility? So in total, one can say 1.5 hours. If I want to go from E to A, what is the possibility? One can go from E to A to B, and then B to A. So can I have E to A to B, and B to A? And the answer is no, because at 11:30 all the team need to be at different stations. So this case can be ruled out. Can I go from E to F, F to A? No, the answer is no, because I can reach from E to A in just 2 steps. Can I go E to A and then A to E? Again, the answer would be no in this particular case, because look at, from 10:30 to A, this team cannot go from E to A. Otherwise, team number 1 and team number 3 are both going to be following the same route at the same time. So it cannot be this scenario as well. That means the only possibility for team number 3 could be it can go from E to D, D to C, and then C to A. E to D, D to C, and C to A. And that basically means I can know at team number 2 at 11:30 will be at what particular point. Team number 1 going from B to A, team number 3 going from C to A, team number 4 going from E to A. So team number 2 at 11:30 must be at F. Now, if I look at team number 2 was at E at 10 o'clock. So at 10:30, the possible place they can go is, one can say, F, A, or D. So I can just write a F, A, or a D. But please note, can it be a A here? And the answer is no, because A to E is being used between 10 and 10:30. So team number 2 cannot go from E to A. So this A would be out. Then again, if you look at team number 3 is following a D to E. So nobody can go from E to D in the same time, because the same street will be occupied by 2 teams. So D also will be out. And that basically means that this particular place has to be a F. Now, 10:30 F, 11:30 F, the only possible route could be F to E, E to F, or it could be a F to A or A to F. So one can see we are able to find out the path for every team, team number 1, team number 3, team number 4, except for team number 2, which already we know, only we don't know whether what path has been traversed between 10:30, 11 and 11 to 11:30, because we have 2 possibilities. Let's try to attack the question now. Which among the following station is visited by the largest number of times? So if you look at, suppose, let's focus on one by one. Station number D. So D count, if you look at here, for team number 1 is 0. Team number 2 also is 0. This is 2. So count becomes 2 so far. Let's look at station E. Station number E is 1 times here. Here one can say it could be a 1 or a 2. Then here we have 1. And here we have 2. So one can say station number E, one can say either it's going to be a 5 or a 6. Right now, most number of times, so its answer can't be option number 1 at the point. Station number C, if I look at C, this is 0, this is 0, this is 2, this is 1. So 3, again lower than station E. Station number F, so F I can see 0 times here, 3 times here, 0 times here, 0 times here. That clearly means my required answer for this particular question would be option number 2 over here. In the next one, they say, how many times do the team pass through station B in a day? So if I look at the count for station number B in a day, so it is 1 here, 2 here, and none of the team 2, 3 or 4 is going to be over here. So the answer in this particular case becomes 2 times. The next one talks about which team patrols the street connecting D and E at 10:15. Now 10:15 basically means something between 10 and 10:30. So 10 and 10:30, between D and E, you will find definitely team number 3. So the required answer for this particular question should be option number 1 over here. In the next one, it says that how many times does team number 4 passes through station E in a day? So I have to focus on team number 4, and they are saying how many times they pass through E. So once, twice. So the answer for this particular question becomes 2. And then finally, the question says how many teams pass through station C in a day? So if I look at station number C, this team number 1, no. Team number 2, no. Team number 3, yes, it has taken passes through station C. Team number 4 also, yes. So 2 teams which are team 3 and team 4, and hence one can choose to mark option number 2 over here. So overall, if you look at, again, not a very straightforward set. Only people who will understand couple of anchor points can possibly crack it. But again, under the exam condition, this would be a moderate kind of set. And people, I would say, may take close to 15 odd minutes to close this particular set. It won't be done possibly in a 5-minute time. In this particular set, it is given that an air conditioner AC company has 4 dealers, namely D1, D2, D3, D4 in a city. It is evaluating sales performance of these dealers. The company sells 2 variants of AC, namely windows and split. Both this variant can either be inverter type or non-inverter type. It is known that the total number of AC sold in the city, 25% of them were window variant, which would mean the remaining are going to be split variant. Among the inverter AC sold, 20% of them are window variant. And then they gave you further set of information. So moment suppose someone read this particular set, it's a very familiar construct which you must have come across in various SIMCAT, especially in SIMCAT number 4, in SIMCAT number 6, we are going to create a table like a situation over here. Because for every dealer, what can he sell? He can sell basically a window inverter, window non-inverter. Then we can find out the total number of window AC sold by D1. Then it could be for a particular dealer, it could be the split inverter, split non-inverter, total number of split AC. Then how much, let's say, inverter AC being sold by D1, how much non-inverter AC in total sold by D1 or whatever D2, D3 and so on, and overall number of, let's say, AC being sold over here. That is going to be very clear over here. Then if I look at the question type, and first 3 questions basically mean that we are definitely going to find out a unique possibility for this 3 question. But my last 2 question talks about, because the question number 4 talks about which of the following statement is necessarily false. So in this particular case, we might get multiple possibility. And also for question number 3, you can see if D3 and D4 sold an equal number of ACs, then the number of non-inverter AC sold by D2 is how much. So again, a if condition implies something in the table we might not be able to calculate. Let's look at the approach. So as I told you, we are going to create a table like this. And in this particular case, what I will do is I will take different variable, and moment suppose I get the value of one variable, I will remove that particular variable and I will put the number in place of that. What you can do in the exam condition is make an identical table. In one of them, you can take certain variables, and then in the second one, once a variable comes up, you can just put those values. So we are going to start, let's say, with the first part. It is known that total number of AC sold in the city, 25% of them are window variant. So this 25% basically mean nothing but one can say 1/4. So what I will do is, in case I assume total number of, let's say, AC being sold is 4A, then out of that 1/4 of 4A correspond to A are window variant. So total of the window variant has to be nothing but A, which would mean the total of the split variant has to be nothing but 75%, or one can say 3/4 of 4A, giving you a 3A. Then if I look at the next line, among the inverter AC sold, so inverter total, then they are saying that 20% of them happens to be nothing but window variant. So first of all, if we look at the number 20%, that means 1/5. So if I assume, suppose this thing as 5B, let's say, in that particular case, out of 5B, 1/5 will mean nothing but B are of, one can say, window variant. This is going to be a B. That means the split inverter would be nothing but, one can say, remaining 4B over here. So we have used the first 2 sentences. Let's now look at the point 1 to 7 one by one. Point number 1 says every dealer sold at least 2 windows ACs. What does that mean? The value over here for dealer number 1, 2, 3, 4, total number of window AC sold need to be at least equals to 2. That simply means the variable A which I have taken need to be at least equals to 8. So point number 1 will, let's say, come into picture after a point of time. Let's go to point number 2. Point number 2 has direct information. So point number 2 happens to be a plug-in statement. D1 sold 13 inverter AC. So total number of inverter AC sold by D1 happens to be nothing but 13. So I will put a 13 over here. Then they are saying while D3 sold 5 non-inverter AC. So for the person D3, total number of non-inverter AC sold happens to be nothing but a 5 over here. We have completely used point number 2. Let's look at point number 3, and point number 3 is a very important point to solve couple of questions. Point number 3 says a total of 6 window non-inverter AC and 36 split inverter AC were sold in the city. So understand a total of 6 window non-inverter AC. So within window non-inverter AC total has to be equals to a 6. This become equal to 6. And 36 split inverter AC. So under split inverter total must be equals to a 36, implying this 4B is equals to a 36. And this will give you the value of B to be equals to a 9. And moment I use this information, if I put the value of B as 9 everywhere, this is going to be a 9. Then the term 4B is 36. Then the term 5B becomes a 45 here. And now if you look at this A over here is nothing but the sum of 9 plus 6 giving you a 15. So if A becomes 15, the term 3A will become a 45. And the term 4A will become nothing but equals to a 60. So at this particular moment, only after reading point number 1, 2 and 3, we are able to find out total number of AC sold happens to be a 60, of which 45 of them are inverter AC, which would mean remaining 15 are nothing but non-inverter AC. Again, total number of split AC sold are 45, out of which 36 are inverter nature. So what about the non-inverter? 45 minus 36 will give me a 9 at this particular point. This is what we have at the moment. We have used point number 1, 2 and 3. If you read point number 4, now it says the number of split AC sold by D1 was twice the number of window AC sold by it. So what I can do in this particular case is if I assume the number of window AC sold by D1, let's say some variable C over here. In that particular case, the number of split AC sold by D1 has to be double. So it should be a 2C here. So total number of AC sold by D1 become nothing but equals to a 3C. C plus 2C will give me a 3C. So understand, once I get the value of C, I can replace that C, 2C and 3C term. Going ahead, if you look at now the point number 5, it says D3 and D4 sold an equal number of window AC. D3 and D4 have sold equal number of window AC, and this number was 1/3 of the number of similar AC sold by D2. So if I look at, suppose if I assume the number of AC sold, window AC sold by D2 being 3x, in that particular case, D3 and D4 are going to sold nothing but x and x. So now if I look at this particular column, one can say C plus 3x plus x giving you C plus 5x is equals to a 15. And solving for this, you have the values could be a 0 for C, x as 3. It could be x as 2 and C basically as 5. Now understand, each of this value of C, 3x, x and x need to be at least equals to 2 from this point number 1. So point number now 1 comes into picture, which would mean that this particular case can be ruled out, and one can say the value of x in this particular case would be 2 and the value of C would be 5. So if I replace C as 5, this term would become 5, this would become a 10, and this basically becomes a 15. So the dealer number 1 has sold a total of 15 AC, out of which 13 are inverter. So one can say remaining 2 are non-inverter. We also got the value of x to be equals to 2. So this particular term will become nothing but one can say 6, 2 and 2. So we have used point number 5 as well. Going to the last 2 points, point number 6 talks about D2 and D3 were the only one who sold window non-inverter AC. It means the person D1 and D4 are not selling the window non-inverter AC. So I can put a 0 and a 0 over here. And from this, I can possibly say that D1 must have sold 5 window inverter AC and D4 must have sold 2 window inverter AC. So if I look at now for the person D2 and D3, it is saying that the number of this AC sold by D2 was twice the number of this AC sold by D3. So if I assume suppose D3 has sold Y number of window non-inverter AC, in that particular case the person D2 is going to sell, one can say nothing but 2Y number of window non-inverter AC. And from this one can say this 2Y plus Y will be giving you 3Y equal to 6, where Y will become equals to a 2. So using point number 6, we are able to find out the value of Y as 2. So the term 2Y will become equals to a 4. And from this, I can easily find out the number of window inverter AC sold by D2 and D3, which would be 6 minus 4 giving you a 2. And for D3, this number corresponds to a 0. So far we have got this much. And if I look at now, we can also find out D3 is going to sell how many non-inverter AC. Please note D3 is selling a total of 5 non-inverter AC, out of which 2 of them are window, which would mean the 3 of them are going to be nothing but split in nature. Then if I look at point number 7, it says D3 and D4 sold an equal number of split inverter AC. So split inverter AC were equal for D3 and D4. Suppose if I assume it to be Z and Z. And this number was half the number of similar AC sold by D2, which would mean that this particular part I can take it very much as 2Z. Now can I also find out the number of split inverter AC sold by D1? The answer is yes. Total number of inverter AC sold by D1 happens to be 13, out of which 5 happens to be window inverter. So remaining 8 must be split inverter. This part becomes a 8. And now in this particular column, I can say 8 plus 2Z plus Z plus Z equals to a 36, giving you a 4Z as 28, or the value of Z become equals to a 7. If Z becomes 7, this will become nothing but a 14, 7 and a 7. This much is known. So we can also find out that total number of split AC sold by D3 must be 7 plus 3 giving you a 10. This part is known to us. Now we can also find out the number of overall inverter AC sold by D3. It must be nothing but 7 plus 0 giving you a 7. So now we also know total number of AC sold by D3 happens to be 7 plus 5 giving you a 12. And if you look at, we can also find out the number of split non-inverter AC sold by D1. It has to be 2 minus 0 giving you a 2 over here. So right now we don't have any further condition. That means we cannot find out the other numbers for D2 and D4, but we will be in a position to answer most of our questions. So let's look at the question number 1 now. Question number 1 says, how many split inverter AC did D2 sell? So D2 split inverter, that number happens to be 14, and hence one will enter 14 as the answer for this particular question. In the next one, if you look at, the question says, what percentage of the AC sold were non-inverter type? Understand total number of AC sold are 60. Out of that, non-inverter happens to be a 15. So 15 out of 60 is nothing but simply a 25%. And hence option number 1 is the answer for this particular question. In the next one, it says that what was the total number of AC sold by D2 and D4? If you look at total number of AC sold by D1 and D3 is equals to 15 plus 12 giving you a 27 out of 60. That means D2 and D4 together must be selling 60 minus 27 giving you a 33, and hence the answer for this particular question would be a 33 over here. If I go to the next question, it says that which of the following statement is necessarily false. It simply means it has to be false in each and every situation. So again, let's look at the table and try to analyze the statement number 1 and then 2 and so on. So number 1 says D1 and D3 together have sold more ACs as compared to D2 and D4. In the previous question itself, we have found out D1 and D3 have sold a total of 27. These two people are selling a 33, and 27 is not more than a 33. So number 1 is certainly going to be a false, and hence the answer would be option number 1 over here. If I go further, let's check some of the options as well, even though we have got our answer. Statement number 2 or option number 2 says D2 sold the highest number of ACs. If you look at this particular moment, the number of inverter AC sold by D2 happens to be a 16. The person D2 is also selling at least, one can say, 4 inverter non-inverter AC. So this number would be 4 plus something. So total number of AC sold by D2 would be nothing but 20 plus something. Even if I assume this X to be equals to a 0, then it is also going to become nothing but a 20, which would mean the max number of, let's say, AC being sold by D4 will be nothing but equals to a 13 when I assume the value of X to be equals to a 0. Whatever case you take, for X as 0 also, the person D2 end up selling the highest number of AC. That means this option number 2 is always true. Then if you look at statement number 3, D1 and D3 sold an equal number of split AC. D1 is selling total of 10. D3 also is selling 10. That means option number 3 also happens to be always true and should not be the answer. Likewise, we can, let's say, look at option number 4 as well. But we already have got our answer as option number 1. If I look at the next one, it says that if D3 and D4 sold an equal number of ACs. So understand, D3 and D4 sold an equal number of ACs. That means this number will be 12. What was the number of non-inverter AC sold by D2? Non-inverter AC sold by D2. So once I got this, that D4 is selling total of 12 ACs. So total right now become equals to, one can say, a 39. 12 plus 12 plus 15 give you 39. So this particular thing will become equals to a 21, which would mean this particular part, 16 plus 5 would be a 21. If this number is 4 over here, this particular part becomes equals to a 1. The question says number of non-inverter AC sold by D2. The thing is, we need to find out this value. Non-inverter AC sold by D2 happens to be 5, and hence option number 3 is the answer for this particular question. So if you look at overall, even if say someone used the few conditions, condition number 1, 2, 3 properly, they would be in a position to, let's say, solve the first 2 questions pretty easily. Overall, this particular set look familiar because you already have encountered such sets in the SimCat, especially SimCat number 4 and 6 has almost the same kind of replica, and this will give confidence to you to how to start this kind of problem.